I'm producing this video to help you understand what goes into Milestone, one of our term project for class. Milestone 1 objectives are really to define your target market's demographic information. You want to generalize a definition from it. I'll explain this in a minute. Define psychographic elements. Do them in this order, by the way. It's much easier to do this way. And then develop a persona. So I'm going to explain each one of those steps. So the very first thing you need to do is look at the Milestone 1 template. It's in the Milestone 1 module in our class shell. It gives some guidance on what to search for and define. You can use it for building your document. So there's a template attached with this, and it really explains exactly what you need to do. But the key to this milestone, and the other ones as well, but this one in particular, is you need to do some research and really understand who the target market is for the product. You want to check the starter research in the final plan background information document that you probably looked at already by now. And Google searches should be sufficient as long as you do them well to get information. So you want to start with getting the demographic facts. Well, you're going to know that demographic facts are usually discrete variables that are used to describe the people who are most likely to buy the product. By the way, that is, when you say target market, that's really the underlying thought there is that these are the group of people out of all of the people that are most likely to buy this product. So they're meant to be somewhat predictive, okay? So there's, like I said, there's some seed research to help you get started. You want to look at the company background information, how the existing customer base is targeted to a framework, not necessarily all the specifics of it, but just understand how it's going to market today. And understand what variables and then define what variables you're going to look at. So age, usually stated as a range, gender. If one of them is dominant, when I say dominant, it's actually predictive. It helps you understand. You don't have to, but sometimes it makes sense to do that. Income, the general class definitions, okay, like middle class, upper class, whatever, that type of thing. If you can find more specific information, you can use that up, certainly. Education level, profession, marital status, children, the type of home that the person lives in, and the location, if that's meaningful or possible to understand. Ethnicity, if one is particularly important, or any other specific defining variable that you can usually put a discrete answer to, okay? So again, you got that starter research to help you out, but you're going to have to do some on your own. While you're doing this research, make sure you're taking notes. So you want to record all the source information, the author, title, date, all those kinds of things that are required for APA citation. You want to take specific notes. You can quote in your milestone, which is a good thing to do to help strengthen and clarify your points. And when you're doing the research, a lot of times you're going to find sources that just have all this information, but you really just want to concentrate on finding the information that helps you define the target market, the things about market size and economic conditions and such are really not really critical to what we're doing here. So you're going to get that really specific information, finding these ranges or very discrete data, and then you want to generalize from that. And so, for example, if you find an age range of 30 to 45 years old, you're talking about a millennial. And you know how we classify generations by names, like millennial, type Z, type Z, Gen Z, baby boomers. I don't know. There's a number of them out there, right? So where you find that is if you can define that age range as one of the generational groups, like millennial, when you do searches for research from here forward, it's going to be just so much easier to do. So when you say, I want to know where millennial moms shop, you'll probably find some information about that doing a Google search. If you say, I want to know where 35-year-old suburban women shop, maybe not so easy. Okay, you may not get much information doing it that way. So it's not wrong in that it's still based on the research of what you found, but it just puts it into a different term. So try to generalize. It's an important step, and I'm going to give you some feedback on that if you're struggling with it. Psychographic elements are much simpler. That you want to be able to define as many psychographic elements as apply. And these are things like, what are the wants of your target market, the goals, the lifestyle activities, the hobbies and interests, shopping habits, all those different types of things that go into describing what their attitudes are, what they do behaviorally, things like that. Those are psychographic elements. So using your more generalized demographic definition that we just came up with in the last step will really help you get some answers here. It's really hard to find if you don't have a good generalized definition. So you want to avoid being too general, because everyone and anyone is not a target market. That's a recipe for disaster. You need to understand who is most likely going to purchase your product. And being too specific, it just means you're going to be shooting too small. So don't go for males that make between $100,000 and $125,000 a year. You're probably not on the right track if you're doing that, okay? Write your persona. Well, a persona is basically a fictitious character that's reflective of your target market definition. They became really popular back in the Mad Men age, of advertising, if you remember that series on TV. It's kind of fun to watch, but it doesn't capture enough of the fun part of advertising, unfortunately. But having said that, a lot of times the people that were structuring the advertising came up with this thing called a persona, which was like a fictitious person, but that person had a name, had a location where they lived, the names of their children, all this other stuff. Anything about that person was defined, because when they would explain why they're doing the advertising campaign that they're doing, it starts with this persona, okay? So Susie Homemaker, a famous term used back in those days to describe women who were married and were career at-home moms, like that kind of thing. That kind of evolved into soccer moms, but you get the idea here, so that's where the persona is coming from. But the persona is an actual person, not an actual person, but the definition of who could be an actual person. And so you give your persona a name, you give her real age, give her a representative location. If she's married, what's the name of her husband? If she has kids, who are they, and what their names, and what are their ages? And so, and a lot of times when you do demographics, you see ranges. So pick a value in the middle of that range. So don't go on the extreme. So if you say my range is 30 to 45 years old, don't take 30 and don't take 45. Take something in the middle, okay? So in this case, we might say our persona is 38 years old. Again, so if somebody said, well, who's the customer of your product? Well, it would be like, hey, meet this person over here. That person is the target market for my product. Your target, you as you do some more research and everything, you might find that you're reshaping who your target market is, adding to it, basically finding additional information. That's fine. Go ahead and revise it on. You don't have to get my approval. Go ahead and revise it. If you find yourself in a position where it's like, wow, I was 180 degrees wrong, and I need to completely redefine my target market, let me know, like sooner than later. That's what you think, where you think you're going. We'll figure out a good way, because in the end, we want to get this project done. So when you're done, your milestone document will be around 3 pages long, single-spaced paragraphs. Use tables to list data points, good idea, and make sure that your citations are correct. Nothing in your milestone 1 is assumed information. It is coming from research, so nothing should be made up here, okay? So an outline to follow. This is, again, the template that I talked about before. List and briefly define your target market's demographics. Have at least 5 of them. List and briefly define your target market's psychographics. Have 5 of them. Define your target market with a more general definition. That's just basically a paragraph. And then write that persona. A persona writes like a narrative. So it's like, well, who is the persona? well, that's this person over here, and let me tell you about that person, okay, as if you're introducing them to somebody else, okay? So you want to be able to do that. That really should be longer than a paragraph. Make sure you've got a reference list for all your research sources properly cited, okay? In the end, you're going to drop this assignment into the assignment folder called Milestone 1. Make sure your name is on the document, like Milestone 1, and you put your name on there. I will give you feedback, and you should use that to reshape your document. You can go ahead and make revisions and changes to it, because, again, you're going to return this in. It's almost like you're getting a chance to redo it with feedback, okay? And you use this document to put together your final plan submission, sorry. Okay, so that's Milestone 1. It's a real important one. Make sure you jump in and do the research. If you're struggling with that at all, please reach out to me. I can give you some guidance there, but that's what you need to do. Okay, so the best of luck with this, and again, if you have any questions, please let me know sooner than later.